Today in this tutorial, I will be creating a perspective image where I will be taking a small plastic train toy and making the train toy 100 times larger on Photoshop. The first step is to create the background composite. So I'm taking all the pictures that you're seeing right now on the screen and I'm going to stitch them all together like a panoramic using the Photo Merge tool on Photoshop. And I'm going to add open files and hit OK, and it's going to take about 10 pictures and combine them into one single picture. And the purpose for doing this is to have a smaller depth of field and also so I can print the image a lot larger. To copy and paste the train, I'm using the lasso selection tool to make a selection with the marching ants. And once I see the marching ants, I'm going to hit Control Copy, then go to the main image and hit Control Paste on the main image. Then I'm going to transform the image by hitting Command T on my Mac keyboard and then stretching out the sides of the box to make the train a little bit larger. As I made the train larger on Photoshop, I was holding down the Shift button so that the dimensions of the train did not move. And now it's time to copy and paste the baby onto the main picture. So to do that, I'm not going to use the lasso selection tool. I'm going to use the quick selection tool. As you can see on the left, it's selected, the quick selection tool, which is a great tool because it kind of just snaps to the outline of the person or the subject or the object that you're trying to select. So I'm just going to drag the quick selection tool over the baby all over the areas that I want to copy and paste. And I'm also going to copy and paste the ground so that the shadows remain consistent. As you can see, the ground is still in the selection. And then I'm going to create my layer mask on the layer and use a paintbrush tool to erase away from the ground a little bit more to bring the composite together. And the larger the brush is and the softer it is, the better your selection is going to blend in with the background. So it's starting to look really good already. I'm really excited about how this is looking. So now I just duplicated a background layer and I'm going to select with the eyedropper tool a black color. And I'm just going to start painting in black where I want the tunnel to appear on the picture. And then I'm going to create a layer mask on my background copy layer, and with black on top, I'm just going to use my paintbrush tool and erase away so that the little cement block can show through. And I'm just going to do the most perfect job I possibly can. And then I'm going to take a different picture that I found on the internet, because you can use free pictures in your pictures, like little stock images. And I'm just going to copy and paste that selection onto the main image, which you can see appears super small. So I'm going to transform it by hitting Command T on my Mac keyboard, stretch out the corners of the box, and make the railroad a lot larger. And I'm just going to keep stretching that out until it's the right size. And I'm just going to place that where it looks best. And now I'm changing the blending mode of the railroad track layer to darken so that it blends in better with the background. And then I'm going to create my layer mask, zoom in so I can see what I'm doing, and just erase away at the edges of the selection of the railroad tracks and just bring the composite even that much better together. A little bit later in this tutorial, I will be adding a shadow from the train onto the train tracks to make the picture that much more realistic looking. Now I'm going to go to an old picture from a few months ago where I was using some smoke pellets with my friend, and I'm just going to use a lasso selection tool to create a selection around the smoke. Then I'm going to hit Control Copy, then I'm going to hit Control Paste on the main image, transform the selection sideways, and then I'm going to stretch out the selection and make it a lot larger after I have put it in its right place. And I'm just going to make the selection a lot larger, rotate it a little bit, put it in place, and then I'm going to change the blending mode to Lighten. Lighten is really great because it takes away the blacks from the pictures and keeps the whites, so that's really good for adding smoke detail. For the frame of the tunnel, I'm going to use a different picture that I found on the internet, and just like with all the other selections, I'm going to use the lasso selection tool to create a selection that I'm going to copy and paste onto the main image. So once I have my selection in place, I'm going to hit Control Paste onto the main image after hitting Control Copy, and I'm going to transform that selection, make it larger, reduce the opacity of the layer so I can see where to place it, and I'm just going to move it around to get it in place. And then I'm going to create my layer mask and erase away with a really hard brush, just framing the edges of the selection and getting rid of all that stuff that we don't want in the picture. And you can kind of just watch along as I do this. As you can see, I'm painting with black on top. Black is on top over white in the bottom left-hand corner. That means you're erasing away. Now that I have my selection in place, I'm going to bring up a curves layer, and I'm going to darken the selection so that it blends in better with the background and looks more natural. And now I'm going to my blue curves channel, and I'm going to bring the line down so that the selection is more yellow and it gets rid of some of that blue that was naturally already in the picture. So I'm really liking how the toy train is looking. The only issue is I have some empty space behind the train that I would like to fill in. So right now I'm using the quick selection tool to make a selection. I'm going to copy and paste that selection, and then I'm going to place that where I think it looks best, create my layer mask, erase away. And that's my solution for filling up that empty space. I basically took my original train that I had and duplicated it twice, but it doesn't really look that way. It kind of looks like it's just another part of the train in the back of it. It doesn't look like I duplicated it twice. And I'm going to add some motion blur and a little bit to this selection so that it looks even more different than the first selection that we copied and pasted from, if that makes sense. And as you can see, white is on top over black in the bottom left-hand corner, which means I'm painting back in. I'm painting back in because I had to erase. Usually I'll take a selection, erase away from it completely, and then I'll paint it back in. And that's the easiest way for me to do compositing. And like I said, I'm just using some motion blur on this selection that we've been working on, this extra train layer in the back of the main train. And I'm not going to add too much motion blur, just enough to make it look like the train is moving. And also to make it look like the back of the train looks completely different than the front of the train, so it doesn't look like the same layer duplicated twice. And usually when I'm done with the entire composite, I'll go to Visco. I use package 1 of Visco, VSCO. It's a Lightroom feature. And I add different filters and I add saturation. This is the before and after of the Visco features. Before, after, which I'm really liking. I always love using Visco. Now I'm adding some saturation on the saturation tool just to give it a little more pop of color. Now I'm on my hue saturation tool and I'm just adjusting all the individual colors of the hue and saturation tool. And I'm just clicking that layer on and off so you can see the difference. Now I'm adding a vignette at the bottom of the picture by drawing it in with the lasso selection tool, then redefining the edge and making it a lot smoother. And after hitting OK, then I go to my curves channel layer and I bring it down to add the vignette. And you can see that's the before and after of the vignette. After adding some gradients and some curved layers to give the picture kind of an artistic, cool looking feel in terms of the colors, I'm going to go to my smoke brushes and just stamp on with the brushes. You can see my brushes are there on the top left. And there's so many different types of brushes. You can download them for free on Google. Just download Smoke Brushes Photoshop, and a bunch of websites will pop up where you can download these free brushes. It's really easy to download and install into Photoshop. You can always message me if you have any questions about that. So now I'm just selecting different smoke brushes and stamping them onto the picture to make it look like the train realistically has smoke going through the tunnel. And I just finished clicking those layers on and off of the smoke brushes. And now I'm going to select the train at the bottom of the train using the quick selection tool so it snaps to the selection that I want to create. And I'm doing this so I can create a shadow where the train meets the railroad tracks. So once I have my selection in place with the marching ants, I'm going to hit Control Copy, Control Paste, and that brings up a new layer. I'm going to double click on that layer and hit Drop Shadow at the bottom of the panel of options that it gives you, and then I'm going to mess around with the settings a little bit. You can see there's opacity, there's angle, there's all these different options you can use to edit your shadow. So I'm just going to mess around with those options a little bit until my shadow looks the best it possibly can. Right now I'm on opacity and I'm augmenting the opacity so that the shadow shows up even more. Now I'm going to create my layer mask on the layer of the shadow so that I can erase away, because obviously you can see that it showed up on the baby's face and we don't want that, so I'm just erasing away the shadow from the baby's face. And now my composite is really looking pretty perfect. I'm really happy with the way that this composite is coming together. Right now I'm adding a filter, an orange filter, onto the picture to make the colors of the picture a little bit more warm. And here finally is the finished picture. The only step I didn't show you was how to add the light onto the train. This was pretty simple. I just used my lasso selection tool to draw different areas where I wanted the light to appear on the photo, and then I brought up a curve layer and brightened up those selections a lot to add in the light. And then I went to the blue channel on the curve layer and brought the line down to make the light a yellow color, making it stand out a lot more. If you have any questions about any of this, please don't hesitate to chat with me in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.